The history of math is our intellectual foundation to understanding science. Science. Beautiful, awesome, wonderful science. It's the creative foundation to our ineffable future. Hi, I'm Gabrielle Burchak, and this is my podcast, Math, Science, History. Being a resident of Los Angeles, I often find myself stuck in traffic. And believe it or not, I really do love traffic. As a bookaholic, it gives me the chance to listen to my books on Audible. Did you know that when you sign up at Audible, you get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial? You can sign up at www.audibletrial.com/mathsciencehistory and choose from over 180,000 titles for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So many wonderful books to explore the wonders of math, science, and history. It's February 2020, and it's Black History Month. For the month of February, I've decided to do a series of podcasts honoring the brilliant, Black, badass goddesses who continue to forge paths for the marginalized in STEM. Every week, I will be doing a podcast on a super shero in STEM who deserves to be recognized for her rise in STEM. Today, I'm going to be talking about Shirley Ann Jackson. Time magazine once wrote that Shirley Ann Jackson is perhaps the ultimate role model for women in science. She is also the first Black woman in America to earn a doctorate in physics. She is the first Black woman to receive a doctorate from MIT. She is the president of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. She has served on boards of directors for banks, electric power companies, oil and gas companies, and the MIT Corporation. Her list of accomplishments and devotion to science and government has earned her 45 honorary doctoral degrees. She is an extraordinary woman with astonishing accomplishments who has achieved so much in her life with absolute tenacity and determination. Jackson was born in 1946 in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, at this time, systemic racial bias permeated our communities and our laws, which means that segregation was legal. As a result, growing up, she was barred from attending an all-white school near her home, and so she had to travel across town to attend a Black school with her sister. She was 8 years old when the Supreme Court ruled that segregation in educational institutions is against the law. Even so, systemic bias still permeated communities across the country. Jackson's parents encouraged her to do well in school. Her mother was a social worker and her father was a postal worker. Together, they encouraged Jackson to develop her reading and writing skills, and they inspired in her a love for math and science. Growing up, she was curious, precocious, inquisitive, and motivated. Jackson, fascinated with nature and science, raised bumblebees in the basement of her home as she studied them and took exceptionally detailed notes about the bees. She excelled at school and flourished at home with her sisters, doing fun things like building soapbox carts. By the time she attended Roosevelt High School, she was a straight A student taking accelerated classes in math and science. At her graduation in 1964, she was the high school class valedictorian. She seized this opportunity to set her sights on a college that could allow her to pursue what she was most passionate about: science. She applied to go to Massachusetts Institute of Technology at the encouragement of the assistant principal for boys at Roosevelt High, and she was accepted. When she entered MIT, even though it seemed as though she was welcome there, racial bias still existed. It was a lonely existence in the entire school because she was only one of 45 women and only one of about 13 African Americans in the entire freshman class that consisted of about 900 students. In her physics classes, nobody wanted to work with her, including the women. Jackson says, quote, "The irony is that the white girls weren't particularly working with me either. I had to work alone. I went through a down period. But at some level, you have to decide you will persist in what you are doing, and that means you won't let people beat you down, unquote. The racial bias and personal discrimination at MIT at this time was so bad that the other girls didn't even want to sit in the same cafeteria with her. Regardless, she never gave up. With the help of scholarships from Prince Hall Grand Masons and the Martin Marietta Aircraft Corporation, she studied condensed matter theory and earned her bachelor's in 1968. Next up, grad school. As the brilliant woman that she is, she was accepted into Harvard, Brown, and the University of Chicago. But she chose MIT with support from more grants and began her graduate-level courses in theoretical high-energy particle physics. While at MIT, both during undergrad and grad school, she served as co-chair of the Black Student Union and then advisor as a graduate student. But she didn't stop there. She kept going. She set up recruiting committees, and I love this next part. She got a commitment from MIT to adjust the requirements needed for admission so that incoming minority students would also have an opportunity to attend MIT. Jackson didn't just flourish at MIT. She didn't just set an example for other women and for other Blacks. She helped pave the way for them. As she rose in her successes, she made a point to pull others up with her too. Jackson earned her PhD in 1973. She was the first Black woman in the United States to earn a doctorate in physics. Within her first several postdoctoral years, she worked as a research associate for Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, CERN, which is the European Organization for Nuclear Research, Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, and the Aspen Center for Physics. Then, in 1976, she joined the theoretical physics staff at AT&T Bell Laboratories. During this time, she fell in love with a fellow physicist, Morris Washington, and married him in 1979. In 1981, her son Alan was born, and during this time in her life, she served on an advisory panel to the United States Secretary of Energy, other councils for the National Academy of Sciences, and on the advisory council of the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. But that's not all. She was also an advocate for Black women in science. She was an advocate for education, and so she also served on committees with the National Academy of Sciences, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the National Science Foundation. In 1982, she received the Candace Award for Technology from the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. In 1990, she received the Thomas Alva Edison Science Award. In 1991, she was elected as a Fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. In 1995, President Clinton appointed her as a chairman of the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. She was the first Black woman to serve on the NRC, and she was the first Black woman to lead the NRC. In 1998, she was honored by the National Women's Hall of Fame. In 1999, she became the 18th president of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. She still serves in that capacity today, 21 years later. In 2001, she received the Richmeyer Memorial Lecture Award with the American Association of Physics Teachers, and she became the first African-American woman elected to the National Academy of Engineering. In 2007, she received the esteemed Vannevar Bush Award for, quote, a lifetime of achievements in scientific research, education, and senior statesman-like contributions to public policy, unquote. In 2012, she was appointed an International Fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering, and in 2014, she was awarded the National Medal of Science. Outstanding doesn't even begin to describe Shirley Ann Jackson. Jackson once said that what drives her is the ability to make a difference, and no doubt, she has made a difference. The list of her awards and honors is lengthy and so well-deserved. However, what supersedes her awards is her remarkable lifetime dedication to science, to education, to our government, and to empowering others. I'm Gabrielle Burchak. This podcast has been brought to you by caffeine. Delicious, wonderful nectar of the gods caffeine. coffee, tea, coffee candy, you name it. I love it. Thank you for listening to Math Science History. If you like what you are listening to, please remember to subscribe and leave a review. I would really appreciate that. If you are interested in reading more about the history of math and science, please come visit me at mathsciencehistory.com. And while you are there, if you like what you're listening to, please feel free to click on that coffee button and buy me a cup of coffee. Until next week, carpe diem.